There's something different about the aftermath of certain fights. Not every loss feels the same. Not every knockout creates the same silence. And not every defeat triggers the same kind of reaction. Some losses hurt your record. Some hurt your pride. And then there are losses that make the people around you panic. The kind where nobody knows what to say. The kind where the cameras are still rolling, but the energy has completely shifted. The kind where one person in particular can't sit still, can't stay quiet, and definitely can't accept what just happened. Because after Anthony Joshua finished Jake Paul, broke his jaw, and sent him to the hospital, the loudest reaction didn't come from Jake. It came from Logan. And the way Logan Paul reacted didn't just raise eyebrows, it lit a fuse across the entire boxing world. Tonight, we're breaking down exactly how Logan Paul spiraled after Anthony Joshua's brutal win, why his rage made an already bad situation even worse, how fighters and promoters responded, and why this moment might have permanently changed how both Paul brothers are viewed in real boxing circles. This isn't just about a fight. This is about what happens when hype finally collides with consequences. Let's rewind to fight night, because everything that happened afterward only makes sense when you understand what actually went wrong in that ring. Jake Paul didn't walk into that fight as a novelty act anymore. This wasn't a retired MMA fighter. This wasn't a nostalgia name. This wasn't a controlled crossover matchup. This was Anthony Joshua, a former two-time unified heavyweight champion, an Olympic gold medalist, a man who spent over a decade getting punched by the biggest, hardest hitters on the planet. From the opening bell, the difference in experience was impossible to ignore. Jake didn't come out aggressive. He didn't try to impose his will. He didn't try to take the center of the ring. He moved. He grabbed. He reset. Over and over again. And that's when it became clear to anyone who really understands boxing. This wasn't about winning anymore. This was about survival. Anthony Joshua didn't chase him. He didn't rush. He didn't waste energy. He watched. He measured distance. He let Jake burn energy just staying upright. That's not mercy. That's professionalism. By the time the fifth round arrived, the cracks were obvious. Jake's balance was gone. His legs were heavy. His breathing was labored. 2 knockdowns in the same round didn't come from chaos or luck. They came from accumulation. And by the 6th, it was only a matter of time. One clean, perfectly timed shot. No theatrics, no controversy, just reality. The referee stepped in because the body had already quit. That alone would have been enough to spark debate. But what happened next turned this into something much bigger. Within hours, Jake Paul was in the hospital. At first, it was downplayed. Then the truth came out. Broken jaw. Then worse, double fracture. Surgery required. Plates inserted. Weeks, possibly months of recovery. This wasn't just a tough loss. This was real damage. And while Jake was being evaluated by doctors, Logan Paul was doing the opposite of what most people expected. Instead of calming things down, Logan ramped everything up. He wasn't reflective. He wasn't quiet. He wasn't measured. He was furious. Publicly. Logan started implying that Anthony Joshua went too far, that he didn't need to hurt Jake that badly, that it crossed some invisible line. And that's the moment the boxing world collectively shook its head. Because there is no invisible line in a sanctioned heavyweight fight. There is no too far when both men sign contracts, touch gloves, and the bell rings. Joshua didn't break rules. He didn't cheap shot. He didn't showboat. He did what elite heavyweights do. He finished the job. And the moment Logan started acting like Joshua owed Jake mercy, everything flipped. Fighters, promoters, and analysts jumped in almost instantly. Johnny Nelson said Jake had never faced anyone who truly wanted to test him, and this fight exposed that brutally. Duke McKenzie said Jake was completely out of his depth, and that stepping in with a real heavyweight was borderline irresponsible. Eddie Hearn went even further, calling Logan's behavior childish and saying it reeked of YouTube theatrics, not boxing reality. Carl Froch slammed the entire situation, saying Jake turning the aftermath into jokes and content only highlighted how unserious he is about the sport. And the more the boxing world defended Joshua, the angrier Logan became. At one point, Logan even hinted at legal action, and that's when the backlash exploded. Because suing a boxer for knocking someone out in a legal fight is absurd. Joshua doesn't need a courtroom to prove dominance. He already did it under the lights. The moment that legal talk surfaced, Logan stopped looking protective and started looking delusional. Fans didn't just criticize him, they mocked him, calling him reckless, calling him embarrassing, calling him a YouTube clown trying to cosplay toughness in a sport he doesn't understand. And here's the part that really matters. Logan thought raging would show strength. Instead, it exposed fear. Fear that Jake had gone too far. Fear that the experiment had finally broken. Fear that the image they'd built for years just cracked on a global stage. Anthony Joshua, meanwhile, handled everything with calm professionalism. He reportedly went over to Jake after the fight and said, "It's just boxing. It's the fight game. No gloating, no trash talk, no victory lap." And somehow, that made Logan's reaction look even worse. Because Joshua was composed, Logan was emotional. And boxing culture respects composure above almost everything else. This wasn't just about Jake losing. It was about how the Paul brothers responded when the sport finally pushed back. Jake joked through surgery. Logan raged online. And the boxing world saw it as confirmation of what they'd always believed, that the Paul brothers treat boxing like content, until it hits back. Simon Jordan summed it up perfectly when he said, "Jake Paul runs around doing what Jake Paul does. Platforms make money. And when reality arrives, nobody wants to own the consequences." This fight wasn't just a loss, it was a reality check. And Logan's inability to accept that reality only magnified the damage. Because now the conversation isn't about Jake's next opponent, it's about whether he should be fighting at all. Broken jaw injuries aren't minor. They change fighters. They linger psychologically. They affect durability. And when your closest ally is raging instead of urging caution, it doesn't inspire confidence. It raises red flags. For promoters, for sponsors, for platforms. This is why people are saying this fight might have ended Jake Paul's boxing career. Not officially, not with a retirement post, but functionally. Because elite boxing doesn't forgive exposure easily. And elite boxing absolutely doesn't forgive chaos. Logan Paul raging didn't protect Jake. If anything, it reminded everyone that when things don't go the Paul's way, they don't respond like fighters. They respond like influencers. And at the highest level of boxing, that difference matters more than ever. Anthony Joshua walked away with his reputation reinforced. Jake walked away with surgery. And Logan walked away having shown the world that no amount of noise can undo what happens when the bell rings. So now the real question isn't whether Logan Paul was justified in being angry. It's whether that anger just closed doors that will never fully reopen. Because in boxing, respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And on that night, Anthony Joshua earned his. While the Paul brothers learned a lesson they can't edit, monetize, or talk their way out of. And here's where this story stops being about emotion and starts being about damage control. Because once the noise died down and the clips stopped circulating, the people who actually shape boxing narratives began to speak in quieter tones. Promoters, broadcasters, matchmakers, the kinds of people who don't tweet rage, they make phone calls. And those conversations weren't about revenge or rematches. They were about liability. Jake Paul had always been a calculated risk. Everyone knew that going in. But there was an unspoken assumption behind every fight he took, that the upside would always outweigh the fallout. That even in defeat, the spectacle would still be manageable. Anthony Joshua shattered that assumption. Not because he knocked Jake out, but because he did it cleanly, professionally, and without controversy. There was no debate, no judging outrage, no what if. Just a heavyweight champion doing exactly what heavyweight champions are supposed to do. That kind of clarity is dangerous for hype-driven boxing. And Logan Paul's reaction poured fuel on it. Because instead of reframing the loss with humility, instead of protecting Jake by slowing things down, Logan escalated the narrative. Every angry comment, every implied threat, every tough guy post made the situation feel messier, louder, and harder to contain. From the outside, it looked like loyalty. From the inside, it looked like instability. And boxing has no patience for instability. This is the part people underestimate. Boxing is violent, but it's conservative. It doesn't reward chaos for long. Once you're seen as someone who brings unnecessary drama without competitive upside, Doors quietly close. That's how fighters disappear without officially retiring. No announcements, no send-offs, just fewer calls. Jake Paul is now walking directly into that zone. The injury alone would have forced a long pause. Broken jaws aren't something you rush back from. Fighters who've had them will tell you, it changes how you feel punches forever. Every exchange carries memory. Every shot carries hesitation. And hesitation at heavyweight is lethal. But beyond the physical damage, there's reputational damage that's even harder to repair. Jake Paul's entire boxing persona was built on confidence, on the idea that belief, preparation, and mindset could bridge the gap between influencer and professional. Joshua didn't just beat him, he disproved that idea in real time. And Logan's rage made that disproof louder. Because while Joshua walked away composed, Logan looked shaken. Not angry because of injustice, angry because the fantasy broke. Angry because for the first time, there was no spin that could fully rescue the moment. You can't edit knockdowns. You can't meme surgery. You can't threaten lawsuits against physics. And that's why so many fighters reacted the way they did. Not with excitement, not with outrage, but with dismissal. Let me know what you think. Was Logan Paul right to rage after seeing his brother injured? Or did his reaction prove exactly why the boxing world still refuses to take the Paul brothers seriously? Subscribe to Fight Fury for raw boxing breakdowns, fighter reactions, and the moments where hype finally meets reality.